Please welcome to the stage from Wavemaker, Elliott, Millard and Emma Moorhead. Give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. That was a really interesting session to sit through because it's actually a really positive setup to what we're going to talk about. So thank you to Maria for kind of flagging a lot of the things that we're going to talk about. I think the two things I was really pleased to see was when you look at the hierarchy of video channels, the inclusion of things like TikTok and Instagram in that. I think that they are, these days, video platforms, and we should think about them in terms of video platforms. Downside, there's a lot of people taking photos of your presentation, and I'm not sure they can take photos of ours. So that's okay. Yeah, I feel slightly threatened. Okay, so we're going to talk about how we avoid streaming audience duplication. There's one thing I want to say before we get into this, two things actually. First one, this kind of assumes that duplication of audience is inherently a bad thing. And that's not always true. We all know that in a video landscape, frequency is going to be really, really important. So what we're going to talk about is how we avoid essentially excess frequency, how we make sure that we understand how many people we're reaching and at what frequency. I am also just going to apologize slightly. We gave this to one of our designers, and you are going to see a lot of duplication of that AI orange ball, which is in pretty much every single chart we're going to present. That's what happens when you give things to designers. So first thing I want to say is this is not a new problem. So this sense of how do we understand how people are, thank you for taking photos, how do we understand how many people we're reaching? This was a problem back in 2006. So back in 2006, I could understand how many people saw my ads on ITV, how many saw my ads on Channel 4, and how many people crossed over between Channel 4 and 4 on Demand. When 4 on Demand launched, it was impossible for me in 2006 to understand the complete ecosystem of who I was reaching. And we are still struggling with that problem nearly 20 years later. And that's the thing, and that's why I think it's important that we have this conversation. The other thing to say is that we are, in many ways, our own worst enemies. This is a genuine WhatsApp conversation between me and a client who texted me. I was on holiday at the time, and she said, "What the hell is OVOD?" I'm still not entirely clear what OVOD is, to be completely transparent, but we are creating these kind of huge problems when we give things confusing names. We're confused by them, clients are confused by them. Actually, what we need to do is simplify down and think about that connected video ecosystem. And the reason that's so important is because over the past few years, I started my career, so did Emma. She looks better than I do. Kind of to the left of that chart. And it used to be really simple. We had basically 6 channels to think about. The world was pretty easy. Fast forward to today, we've now got 14 channels, so about 150% increase in the number of channels we're navigating. At the same time, the most interesting thing about this chart is the amount of time everyone's spending with media per day. We've gone up essentially 300 minutes, so basically 5 hours extra per person per day in the UK. And what that means is you've got kind of both this huge kind of fragmentation, but also a load of stacking. People are consuming multiple video formats at the same time all over the place. And that's causing huge, huge tensions. And what's happening, because people are essentially fragmenting, is that light TV viewers particularly are continuing to rise. So the number of people that TV can reach is still very high, but the number of people that can be reached in in a huge way is in decline. So the number of people who are consuming TV likely is in massive increase, and it has been now for years and years and years. And video, and the very concept of video, is actually becoming kind of blurry. So if anybody read some of the Channel 4 announcements a few weeks ago, Channel 4 are essentially trying to become a bit more like YouTube. So they're getting more into digital first, they're getting more into short form. At the same time, YouTube are trying to get a bit more like TikTok. So they're kind of going, actually, we want to make kind of, social first, we want to do creator content, and TikTok want to get into outdoor. Now, all of those things are part of a video ecosystem, but it means that we can't in any meaningful way use traditional language and traditional measurement frameworks to understand how many people we're reaching, because the concept of video in and of itself is becoming blurry, and we need to accept actually that video is everywhere these days. Everything is video to all intents and purposes. At the same time as we've got this kind of divergence and these blurred lines, we're also getting this sense that audience overlap is becoming narrower. So 2015, if you bought an all ads campaign, just in media in general, not in TV, you basically reached all ads. So the overlap between 1634s and 55 pluses was about 58%, nearly 60%. That's decayed now to 7%. So the overlap between young audiences and old audiences for curated commercial content is 7%. So we cannot rely on just using broadcast channels. We need to think very differently about the people that we're reaching and where we reach those people. And that's particularly happening in video, where the delta between how 1624s behave and how the 65 plus audiences behave are completely different. We need to think about how we behave differently for those different people across different platforms. And that's important. The reason that we're all here today is because video is incredibly powerful. This is some data from some work we do across Group M. Basically take a load of blended econometric norms. It's about 4.5 billion quid's worth now of blended econometric norms. So it's robust, we can trust this data. About 68% of the marketing effect, or the media effect of paid media, comes from video things. And about 32% comes from not video things. So if we sort out video, we will be more effective for our clients, because it is the most effective tool we have when we're doing things for our clients and we're selling stuff on our clients' behalves. And I think, as everyone knows, there is no current silver bullet. I'm sure both of us will have some emails and some LinkedIn things shortly saying that there is definitely a silver bullet and somebody's got it. But the reality is, this is the landscape we're navigating. It is super complicated. There is no one single thing, one solution that can track all of the different platforms, all of those different video experiences across all of the different spaces and all the different audiences we're talking about. And even the ones that are brilliant, and there are some brilliant ones out there, are always by default retrospective. So actually they are not planning tools, they're things that you put into a PCA. They're there to demonstrate that the things you did got you the outcomes you were aiming for. For example, nothing could have predicted that an ITV drama got more 1634 views than anything apart from the FA Cup. That is not something that would have been credible back at the beginning of this year. So we need to think about things that are not just thinking about the platforms and how they're diverging, not just about the audiences, the people that we need to reach, but we also need to stay live and plugged in to everything we do. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we navigate that landscape through the lens of the platforms we need to think about, the people we need to think about, and how we stay plugged in and reactive and live.
Thank you, Elliott. Okay, so let's start by thinking about the platforms. As we've talked about, there's been huge divergence in people's platform usage, so we